This is an analysis from Alpha Business Media. In the world of global tourism, Nepal is making a massive, high-stakes bet. We're seeing the single biggest reimagining of its tourism industry in a generation. They're pivoting away from the very model that made them famous and banking their entire future on a brand new and very different philosophy. And this is the new mantra: high value, low volume. Now, if that sounds familiar, it should. It's borrowed directly from the famously exclusive kingdom of Bhutan. The idea really is to trade the crowds of budget-conscious adventurers for a much smaller number of wealthy trekkers. But make no mistake, this isn't just a price hike. It's a complete restructuring of an entire economic ecosystem, all driven by new mandatory fees and guide requirements. And that, of course, brings us to the core question of this entire analysis. Is the government making a brilliant strategic move, guiding the nation to a new peak in the market? Or are these policies accidentally triggering an economic avalanche that could bury the very communities that depend on tourism for their survival? To really understand Nepal's strategy, we first have to look at the model they're trying to copy, the allure of Bhutan. Because as we're about to see, it's a very seductive comparison, but it might just be a fiscal illusion. Okay, so what's really fascinating here is the fundamental mismatch between the two customer bases. Bhutan, you see, targets an older, wealthier crowd. For them, a high daily fee isn't a barrier, it's a mark of exclusivity. But Nepal's traditional market? It's younger, far more budget-conscious, and their entire decision-making process hinges on a key economic principle. That principle is price elasticity of demand. Now, that sounds complicated, but it's simple. It means Nepal's core market is incredibly sensitive to price changes. For a 25-year-old backpacker, a sudden $500 increase to their trip cost isn't some minor inconvenience they can just absorb. No way. It's a complete deal breaker. They won't just find a bit more money, they'll simply choose another destination altogether, maybe the Indian Himalayas or South America. So, here's the crucial point. Nepal is trying to command luxury prices without first building the luxury infrastructure to justify them. You can't just slap a high price tag on something and call it high value. You need the upgraded lodges, the improved safety standards, the world-class service to back it up. Without that, you risk alienating the market you already have without ever successfully capturing the new one you want. So let's move on to the consequences. Because these policies, they're not happening in a vacuum. They are setting off a chain reaction that's having very significant, very real-world impacts right now. And this shows you exactly how the money is flowing, or rather, not flowing. The new mandatory guide rule forces all trekkers to go through large agencies based in Kathmandu or Pokhara. What this does is consolidate all the spending in the big urban centers. It's actively pulling money out of that decentralized network of small tea houses and local porters who are the absolute lifeblood of the rural economy. This consolidation creates what we call a cartelization risk. It gives immense market power to just a few big agencies who can now pretty much set the prices. And it just suffocates the entrepreneurial spirit of the independent guide. It turns them from a small business owner into just a wage-earning employee, and that stifles innovation at the grassroots level. All of this brings us to what I think is the core strategic error of this entire policy, a fundamental misreading of Nepal's unique and incredibly powerful position in the global adventure market. There's a phrase that just perfectly captures Nepal's unique spot in the world. Too big for Bhutan, too wild for Switzerland. Think about it. Nepal is not a tiny, curated boutique destination like Bhutan, and it's not a hyper-developed, polished place like Switzerland. Its brand promise is something totally different: raw, authentic adventure on an absolutely epic scale. The very things that have defined Nepal's success for decades are now being misread as flaws. Its sprawling, competitive private sector, that provides choice and keeps prices fair. Its vast trail network, it offers unparalleled exploration, and its accessibility to different budgets is what built its global brand. Trying to copy Bhutan isn't just a mistake, it's a misunderstanding of what makes Nepal great in the first place. So, what's the right way forward? Well, the strategy has to shift from a simplistic focus on yield per tourist to something much more sophisticated: optimizing yield per region. This isn't about abandoning the goal of high value. It's about pursuing it intelligently. Take a look at this table. It outlines a smarter kind of hybrid approach. In a premier zone like the Everest region, you can absolutely go for that high-value market. Higher fees, mandatory guides, premium services, it makes sense there. But in an adventure zone, say Manaslu, you preserve independent trekking to attract those pioneers. And in cultural zones, the focus shifts entirely to community benefit. The benefits of this kind of nuanced approach are just crystal clear. It allows Nepal to be Bhutan in the Khumbu region while still being classic Nepal in the Langtong Valley. You're extracting value from all your market segments, you're directly supporting rural economies, you're diversifying your product, and you're creating a much more resilient industry that isn't just betting everything on one type of tourist. Ultimately, the country is at a crossroads, and the choice it makes right now is going to define the shape of its most iconic industry for decades to come. And that choice leads to two very, very different futures. The current path, it risks creating a hollowed-out industry, a situation where a few big city agencies get rich while thousands of rural businesses just fail. But the strategic, tiered approach we talked about, that leads to sustainable, broad-based prosperity. It strengthens the entire economic ecosystem right from the ground up. And this really leaves us with one final critical question. The real strategic challenge here isn't about making some false choice between backpackers and billionaires. It's about designing an intelligent system that understands the unique value that both bring to the table. And this forces us to ask a much bigger question. What is the true measure of value? Is it just the daily spend of a single person, or is it the total economic, social, and brand benefit that's generated for an entire nation?